Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Oleksiy Konashevich. I'm a PhD student of last JD program. My current host university now is the Autonomous University of Barcelona. And my supervisors are Professor Marta Poblet and Professor Pompeo Casanovas. Today, I would like to discuss how titles can become tokens. And this is a part of my research work related to the tokenization of real estate on the blockchain. So let's just imagine, what if there were no third parties like notaries, brokers, agents, or even governments? I think our relations would look like scenes from gangster movies. Did you bring the goods? Or no, show me the money first. And this is a kind of idea that we have the technology now, the blockchain, which is offers something new, which can eliminate the necessity in third parties in some sense. And today I'm talking about crypto tokens, which is based on the blockchain. And I would like to first start with definition. So the token, or the crypto token, represents some value, an amount of something. It is just a record on the ledger in the database, and it is divisible up to 8 decimals. And it has other features as any other blockchains has, like transparency, like immutable and irrevocable transactions. And what is important that this technology eliminates the necessity in third parties, because it can automate relations, and we can also use smart contracts, small algorithms that can arrange such relations. What is the tokenization? So the idea is to use tokens to represent some values of virtual or real world. For example, car, crop of wheat, shares and securities, or even votes on elections, etc., and much, much more. From the legal perspective, this is a kind of evidence of ownership. When you own a token, I mean, the address owns the token, and when it transfers the token from one address to another, it transfers property rights. But what about real estate? In most countries, this is a highly regulated domain. And the problem is now that if we would like to arrange any transaction on the blockchain with real estate, there will be no legal consequences. There's no legal binding. And it means that we have to change the legislation in order to use this. So this is just a general idea how we can deal with it. So first, it is necessary to legally recognize the blockchain transactions, I mean, related to the real estate. And I think the best idea is to introduce the system as a parallel system. I mean, parallel to existing. What do I mean? The people must have an option to choose whether they use traditional, conventional legal tools like notaries, brokers, land registries, or to use the blockchain. So how we can deal with it? The deed, the transaction with real estate, has two components. First, it must be acknowledged before notary, for example. In many countries there are different rules, but in general it is the same. And it must be recorded on the state-owned public registry. How we deal with the acknowledgement? The acknowledgement has three purposes. First, to identify parties. The second, to verify legal capacity, civil capacity. And the third, legal expertise. The first two we can automate by using, for example, digital signatures. And the second by just cross-reference through electronic databases. And the third now is performed manually by notaries, for example, or by lawyers, by professionals who are good in law. And one of the ways to resolve this is to use templates. These are electronic smart contracts, electronic systems actually, that can arrange the transactions with tokens. And by using these templates, we can satisfy the wide range of demand on the market. I can give you an example how it successfully used in other cases. Like if you want, in many countries there are model charter of the company. So if you want to register your company, you have two options. You can write from scratch the article for incorporation, or you can choose a model charter of the company, which is usually adopted by the government. So this is a typical paper document which we can use for your purposes. So the same, these electronic systems, smart contracts, can satisfy such relations like purchase, rent, mortgage, gift, lifelong contracts, wills, and so on. And of course, we need individual smart contracts, right? And it must be designed and created by professionals in law and computer science. And the second question is about registry. Do we need the state-owned registry? Well, the short answer is no. But it's a bit shocking because public authorities got used to be in the center of these issues because they keep records, they maintain all infrastructure, and this is a kind of untypical situation when I say we don't need public registry anymore. But the thing is that the blockchain is a public registry itself, so we don't need two registries, for example. So in this sense, if you want to use tokens in the blockchain, it is enough that these tokens are kept on this electronic database, and we don't need to duplicate it somewhere else. And this is the idea that governments have to get used to this idea that by using the blockchain, the society becomes more organized. So to let go of the reins. Well, how it can be possible, I will show you just an idea, the scenario of this story. First, it starts from the digital signature for identification. I think that is better to use biometry here. And this step is very important. Here we transfer title from the central database to the blockchain. How it can be possible? For example, an owner goes to the town's clerk or register office, whatever it is called in each country, and he asks the town's clerk to make the record in the central database that says that this title, the ownership, is transferred to the blockchain and it is not maintained anymore in the central database, and it has the specific address on the blockchain now. So this is a kind of final record on the central database, and from this moment the person can make some transactions online. For example, he would like to sell his property. Now he chooses the appropriate template, as I already mentioned, of the smart contract, and he uses to make the transaction. What is important here is automation. There's no necessity to, for example, to manually type his name. We can take this name from the certificate of the digital signature, for example, and some other automation may be done, not to allow people to make mistakes. The second is verification of legal capacity and test awareness. Well, what do I mean? In many countries, notary perform this action. Before he notarized the act, he wants to know if the person understands the legal meaning of his action. If it's not, the notary will not certify this act. How it can be performed online? For example, a system can generate some questions specifically related to this transaction. If a person answers this question, the system let him go on. And then the party can close the deal. They use the digital signature to sign the transaction and to cast it to the blockchain. And voila, we have a new owner. The title is transferred from one address to another. I mean, title, token. And what is important in this scenario is to have the option for the owner to choose if he wants to go back to the central database. For example, for some reasons, if there is no appropriate template that can use to arrange his relations, for example, or some other reasons. And the last block is a very important thing, because there is some problems with the blockchain, because transactions are irrevocable and immutable, and it means that nobody can have access to the token. If the person dies, what happened? It's not a good idea for real estate. We need some procedures of inheritance, litigation, to restore access in case he lost, or delegation of power or representation of minors or disabled person, or issues with co-ownership or joint ownership, probably taxation. And this is a very challenging part, because we have to design some solutions using the technology. For example, multi-signature, escrow, smart contracts that will control these issues and will allow third parties to have access, like a notary in case of inheritance, right? So here, this is a part of another discussion, actually, and I'm doing research in this area now. And let's discuss why do we need this tokenization. Well, first, there is no need in notaries in this case, and brokers and middlemen. We can reduce transactional costs. We can reduce costs on public administration, because we don't need to maintain such huge infrastructure of notaries, of public registries, offices, and so on. And we can reduce, of course, bureaucracy and regulations. That will incentivize economic activity, of course. And what is interesting, this is a way to make investments to move from one country to another. So let's, well, this is a good example of ICOs. You might have heard about how people could raise huge funds for their projects by using tokens and by using a cryptocurrency. So in this sense, it's good for real estate, and governments may be interested to attract investment to their country if they allow such things and reduce bureaucracy. It is good for developing countries, because the blockchain system may protect very well property rights. And of course, it reduces corruptions and fraud when it is where it is a problem with it. So this was my short presentation. Thank you for your attention. I'll be happy to answer your questions.